It's time to get bowling, people. We are ready to rock and roll. New Year's Six preview. But before we get into the New Year's Six, because there's all those other games that don't mean nearly as much as the playoff, we're going to get right into the nitty gritty. We have the one and only Jeremiah Campana, who is here, Men of Order's own, to talk shit to our Georgia guy, because Jeremiah is a big Ohio State fan. He lives up there, and he's all excited because they're about to get legalized sports gambling in Ohio.
Can't wait to place a legal bet.
So here we are. We got Jeremiah, Ohio State fan, and our own Tyler Hohenschelt here to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm going to let you guys just dig into it, but first I have to get my shot off. SEC superiority. I'm wearing my 2007 LSU National Championship hat and shirt because the last time LSU played Ohio State, it was a mud stomping.
I memory hold that year.
Yeah, I bet you did. I bet you did because y'all got smoked. Anyway, so here we are. We are ready to get into it. That's the matchup that I think is the most intriguing. I think Michigan should handle TCU in the other side, but it's not a guarantee. I think there's some stuff that the TCU is scrappy, and they're going to have something to say about that. We'll get into that game in just a minute. But first, I want to let you guys get your shots off on each other. I'm going to go to you first, Jeremiah, because you are so confident in this Ohio State team. I want you to talk shit first.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could say that. I still have a bad taste in my mouth from that day in November. We honestly, it's like we're lucky to be here. Georgia and Ohio State this is only our second time ever playing each other, I do believe.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if we're still holding on beef from 1942 when we both claimed national championships. Who's the real one? Is this how it settles it? I don't know. But yes. Hey, last time a group of Ohio boys, marched down to Atlanta, we left behind a trail of tears and ashes. So that's all I'm saying. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But no, I have no reason to be confident in this Ohio State team. Just based off what I saw at the end of the season. Ryan Day, if he doesn't want to be coaching for his job next year, has to win a national championship, plain and simple. And
I don't know. Point?
We are at that point because we're going to be in Ann Arbor next year. If he drops 3 in a row, we take it that seriously. Ryan Day will be coaching for his job.
But okay, so I know this is supposed to be a shit talking fest, but what is Ryan Day's record as a head coach of Ohio State? Hasn't he only lost 2 or 3 games?
What was John Cooper's record? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what your record is. If you don't beat Michigan, that's a problem. And the only thing that'll make that up, because before the playoff, this would have never been a possibility for Ohio State to play in this for a national championship. The fact that we get to, he's lucky because he can wipe that stain with a national championship, and that's the only way that he can wipe that stain. And I don't know how you feel about Georgia. Would you guys have rather played TCU?
Maybe, but here's the thing: is that's a matchup that it's too easy to sleep on.
Right.
So we know we got to get up for Ohio State. Honestly though, Kirby won't let us let us sleepwalk through anything. But I feel like TCU, it's they're. I think that TCU and Ohio State both deserve to be here after what they've done for the season. But I think that Georgia and Ohio State is such just we talk about the history of our teams, not even against each other, but just separate.
Right.
It's such a good looking matchup to have in a college football playoff semifinal.
It really is.
Where it's Ohio State can't hide from the SEC anymore. You know what I mean? Obviously they've done fairly well, in the recent years against the SEC, but it's you don't have to play us year in and year out.
Right.
You know. And it's, you're going to get our best. And here's the thing, though. I don't think there's going to be a game. I don't know what we have to do to make me not nervous for a game.
Right.
After what we've done in the past. Yes, we just won the national championship, but that's the one we've been this close and haven't done it.
Right.
Seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way our team looks right now. I think that it's actually hilarious. I've seen this tweet fired off. It's Stetson Bennett, all he has to do is drop back and throw slants to 5-star receivers. None of our receivers are 5-star receivers. So, there's that. Second of all, if Stetson Bennett was your quarterback, would you complain? This is me talking to anybody.
Yeah, no.
If you had this team, you had our team. If our team was playing for Notre Dame, if our team was playing for your Penn State, your whatever,
right?
Would you be complaining? No,
Yeah, no.
absolutely fucking not.
No.
Um,
Well, I tell people around here, I was like, we have to be careful because from what I've seen, Georgia football plays Michigan football better than Michigan. And we saw what Michigan did to Ohio State. So it's like, if you guys run the same game plan, is Knowles going to have what it takes to adjust that defense at halftime like he should have?
Yeah,
it's,
we usually were slow to go. What we did against LSU is not, no offense, Chad, is not like, it's not a typical, us in a typical big game, we're slow to go.
Right.
Like we it's a feeling
to
out.
be perfectly honest, you were. This blocked field goal that like comes to rest, and then everybody's walking off the field, and they're just like, oh well, I guess I'm gonna anyway. It was a fluke play that's the only reason why this shit even happened in the first place. Otherwise, it would have been either a much closer game early on, and then I don't know how that plays out in the second half if it's closer. But no. So I do want to say this though. Because maybe this will get Jeremiah off of his complaining about his own team.
Yeah.
I'm here. What we're talking about here is SEC supremacy again, and you can talk about all this SEC bias and also I think what it is the Big Ten and the Pac-10, or what used to be the Pac-10, the Big 14 and the Pac-12. They're complaining. They're a little butthurt because all of that bias used to be for them. It used to be just like the Rose Bowl was it, and everybody else was stupid backwoods. Nobody knew anything, and we don't even and you guys skated on the fact that like the media concentration was on the West Coast and on the East Coast, and they were just like all those idiots in the middle of the country don't matter. So unless it's one of these two corners of the universe, we're not even going to talk about it. And this is where the national championships are going to be. And so I think it's a little funny that now that they're actually selling on the field, the SEC is just stomping a mud hole in the rest of the country. And you guys are complaining that it's ESPN's SEC bias. So how does the Big Ten step up and actually prove that maybe they deserve to be on this stage? You finally got two teams in. You can't complain anymore.
Right. Yeah, no, you got to win. You got to win. Yeah. Plain and simple. Like you said, it's got to be done on the field. I think USC coming in.
Oh, shit. You got to win. My bad.
I think USC coming in will definitely bolster the Big Ten a little bit. And you'll see a lot more Big Ten SEC matchups in these playoffs, especially when they expand. I think you're going to see it's very common.
I think that like if anybody wants to dispel doubt, if any Big Ten AD wants to dispel doubt, start scheduling home and homes with SEC teams.
Absolutely.
In that week one. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And but they're not going to do that because we're scared. No offense. They really are. Like, because why would you want to lay an egg in your first game of the season?
We're not. We've been very aggressive with our scheduling moving forward. We got Notre Dame at the home. Say what you want about them. They were good when we scheduled them. And that's another thing about college football. It's like, why do they schedule so far in advance?
You don't play y'all until 2030 in our home and home.
Right. And we scheduled that. We scheduled that 3-4 years ago for 2030.
God willing, by that point, y'all both suck.
Yeah.
We
can hope, right?
Yeah. Well, LSU, like I gotta say, so like we don't have that problem. Like we've been scheduling Oregon in some preseason games. We scheduled not a home and home, but a regional neutral site versus regional. We played them at Lambeau. We played Wisconsin at Lambeau and played Wisconsin in Houston. So it wasn't a home game for either of us. Much more of a home game in freaking Lambeau for them than Houston was for LSU. But still, that was kind of the deal. Is like LSU. We've always tried to schedule. We did the game in New Orleans with Florida State. We're playing them next year in like Orlando or somewhere. So like it can be done. You just have to be willing to do it. And it is kind of weird that they schedule it as far out as they do in advance, because it's just, you're asking for it to be a completely different, like the coaches that scheduled it aren't even there in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's weird.
So as far as this weekend though, I kind of like the way that UGA matches up with Ohio State. I think that our defense is going to be in CJ Stroud's kitchen all day.
You think so?
I mean, I think that it's I mean, maybe I'm saying too much. Like, there's a reason I don't ever say anything positive about my teams because when I do, we lose.
He's like the Lou Holtz of fans.
I know.
Like,
it's like
they're playing Abilene Christian. You're like, this is the greatest football team I've ever seen on film. I've never seen anybody like this before.
But it's any given game, anybody can show up, and that's just the way it works. And we've run into that like many times.
Right.
Especially playing our SEC schedule that we do. I know that we're in the East, but we run into whenever South Carolina wants to play and whenever Kentucky wants to play. So Ohio State is much better than Ohio State and Kentucky.
We can be. You know, it's like you're gonna see one of two teams. I told Chad this. Either you're gonna see the team that sputtered out at the end of the season and Georgia wins by 30, or you're going to see the Ohio State team that's capable of scoring 4 touchdowns in one quarter.
I think it goes down. I think what I think we're going to see is what is when we played Oklahoma in 2018. I think it's going to go the distance. At least because of what your offense has the ability to put on the field. You know what I mean?
Right.
What CJ Stroud can do, and your wide receivers, what you have, like you guys have a stable. And I'm trying to think about the teams that we've played, you know, during the season. You know, obviously, LSU's backup quarterback gave us a run in the second half.
Right. We got a healthy running backs.
We were this close to not even beating Mizzou.
Right.
But luckily that's a win, so you can forget about it. You know, Kent State, we gave them 20.
Right
now, but we are a team that, like, we are very good at staying the course.
Right.
Like Pat and I talked about this. We don't get too hot. We don't let ourselves get too cold or hot throughout the season, because I feel like that's what good teams do.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you take what we did against Kent State and you don't sound the alarm bells. You just, okay, we don't do this again.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't let this happen to you again. So it's a massive opportunity for the boys. And you are coming to Atlanta.
All right, I'm not gonna lie. This is boring as hell. All right, what's the bet? Whoever wins this game, who's wearing what, who's doing what? It's like y'all gotta.
Okay.
We gotta put some skin in this game.
I'd wear whatever.
All right.
I'll put money on it too, Jeremiah.
I could do. I'll do a podcast with you guys wearing a UG hat, University of Georgia hat, or something.
So I'll happily do the next episode of the South End Zone wearing Ohio State stuff.
Or like a foam finger that you got to wave.
right, there you go. You can have a Buckeye sticker on his Georgia.
Yeah, I said I'll put money on. Like, I'm pretty confident. I'm feeling confident, but
you're probably feeling more confident than I am, for sure. But there's a lot, and there's a lot more on the line. I hope it fires my guys up, because CJ Stroud, similar to JT Barrett, has no legacy. There's no defining moment for CJ. Just like there wasn't with JT. Is you can look at the stat book all day and be like, he was great. It was like, yeah, but he doesn't have that defining moment. So there's a lot on the line here. I hope it fires our guys up.
Well, because I've been wanting Ohio State for a long time in my life. I really have.
Why?
Because
we don't think about you guys.
Like, I've been wanting Ohio State because I feel like we've competed. I've been wanting Ohio State many years and years out. It's like, well, I think we could have taken them this year or that year. In certain games anyway. Because once again, I live up in the north, yet I'm a UGA fan. So there are Ohio State people around me, Notre Dame people, Penn State, who think they're this, that, and the other thing when I don't think they are.
Oh, Penn State fans can be rather.
No, I got a soft spot for Penn State, but that's neither here nor there. But like, there's just been years where Ohio State was like, and if we would have had them, I think we could have taken them.
Any
years than y'all vote racing Alabama that year. Well, we that year definitely y'all deserved it.
80 yards through the heart of the South, baby.
So I am excited for this weekend. I really am.
All right, so let's look at we got the lines pulled up here. So this game opened up at 6.5 points. Georgia was favored, and it's pretty much stuck there throughout. Yeah. Like, it hasn't really moved.
What's Ohio State money line?
I don't have the money lines pulled up here.
Okay. Just so you know, Jeremiah, there will be a reverse jinx placed on Ohio State. It works every time.
The reverse jinx.
Yeah, he puts money on the money line of his team's opponent.
Okay.
When they're favored like that, because it's just, or I guess maybe even if you're dogs, right? You still put it on
no, it's usually when we're favored.
When you're favored
against a good team.
You're favored against a good team. He's like, nope, I'm betting the money line I'm lighting this money on fire, and if we lose, at least I get the money.
I because you know why? Because it hasn't failed me because I bet on Alabama in the national championship, and what happened?
Yeah,
it's a happy. You hedge your own happiness. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
You're like, if we're gonna disappoint me, I might as well have some change in my pocket to.
There you go.
Well, it's not gonna make me feel better, but at least it's gonna make my pocket feel better. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what? All right. So let's. If you can't be confident in your team to win this game, all right, how do you feel about covering that 6.5, Jeremiah?
Be confident. Tell me why. Tell me why.
6.5. It should have opened up higher.
Here's the thing, Jeremiah. You have nothing to lose. You really don't. I know that Ryan Day, but you as a fan don't have much to lose.
Ryan Day could lose his eyeliner.
Thing to hang your hat on is, oh, we weren't supposed to be here. We lost to Michigan. Well, guess
That's
what?
true, but then I got to hear from SEC fans again how Ohio State
as you should.
Yeah,
as you should. You got to get it.
But you can still hang your hat on it. That we weren't supposed to be here. Kind of crap. Like you can hang your hat on that. You can.
It's true. That's true.
You almost weren't.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. If TCU and USC would both win, and then don't get confused though, it's not going to be, even though it's in Atlanta, we travel and we have fans.
I know the Big Ten travels. I was in Miami for the semifinal. It was maize and blue for 3/4 of the stadium. I was the one in red and black.
We'll be there. We'll be loud.
It wasn't very loud in the second half of that Michigan game last year, though.
Well, Michigan's not loud anyways. That's it's crazy.
No, they weren't. They would talk shit to your face, but like the stadium never got too crazy.
And they have one of the biggest stadiums in college football, and even there they don't get loud. It's bizarre.
Like that's what I mean. It's like Penn State. When Penn State played Michigan, I couldn't hear a thing. But like when we were playing Michigan, I was like, huh. So I can actually like think and like and it was mainly Michigan fans. I mean, and they did have some good moments in that game.
Mm-hmm.
But
Chad, what's your money line on your thing? What's your money line? Predict on your predictor.
Who do I have? So I mean, it doesn't spit out money lines, but like who
are your
who I've got it favored? Yeah.
What's your spread?
The spread.
My spread. Let me hang on. I didn't bring my notebook up here, and I'm hating myself for it now. Yeah, so I've got Georgia favored by 7.5. So it's pretty close to what that is.
So he says that doesn't mean anything for us. He said in the history of history of this season, if a team is favored by more, it doesn't really help them out as much as if the underdog is favored closer, right?
It's in some cases it's better if it's like a little bit tighter like that. Like when it's around the same, it's usually like a sign that it's going to be that it's pretty fairly marked by the odds makers. So that's where I think, and I think this is going to be one of those games that it depends, like Jeremiah said, it depends on what Ohio State team shows up. Is this the Ohio State team that still believes in itself, that it's a completely different team from what we saw against Michigan in November, or is it are we going to actually see the team that we saw in November? Because this is what I kind of surmised from watching that game play out. I think Ohio State went into that game expecting to just handle business.
100%. They were in the shoe.
Right.
They were like it was a foregone conclusion as far as they were concerned.
I can feel that.
And then when they got hit in the mouth, they didn't know how to respond to it.
Yeah.
And they just kept getting drummed as the game went on.
I could feel that at the start of the game. Is that like
that's how LSU looked when they played Texas A&M. When LSU played Texas A&M in College Station, it was the same kind of thing. LSU went into that game looking forward to the SEC championship and a chance to go to the playoffs. And Texas A&M was like, okay. And it was a terrible Texas A&M team, but they have talent. They have talented players. And I think what they were suffering from most of the season was poor coaching, poor preparation, and lack of motivation. Well, you distill all of those three things into Jimbo Fisher coaching against a team that he used to coach for at LSU when he was offensive coordinator under Saban, and all that talent coalescing together and that motivation of like, if there's one thing we're going to do, it's going to beat these motherfuckers. And so that's what they came out and did. And I think LSU was just like, whoa. We didn't know this was actually going to be a football game. What the hell are y'all doing? What, like my kids do when they're playing Fortnite or something like that? Try hard, well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to try hard.
And that's on coaching.
how are you going to slander somebody for trying hard? Like,
right.
what are you doing? Anyway, so I think if Ohio State comes out with the energy that they need to come out with that nothing to lose, I think it could be a much closer game. I think they could actually even possibly win this game. I just, the thing I have a hard time picking against Georgia and the way Kirby Smart prepares them. The only team I would pick against them actually is Alabama.
That's what I would say too. And that's why
because,
I'm Aaron here.
Because that's the only thing I can compare it to, where it's just like, yeah, man, you may think they're like Rasputin. You may think they're dead, but they're not dead. They're still there. Like that. Tyler can speak to this. That national championship in 2018, it was done. And then Jalen Hurts gets benched. Tua comes in. Tua throws a pick. And you're like, it doesn't matter. We still got this. Nope. No, you don't. Because they came back and they won that game. And that's just how those teams that are coached that well, when you got that much talent, because you're talking about a team, a program with Georgia that has had like one of the top 3 recruiting classes, like the last 5-6 years.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Talent from door to door, and the preparation with Kirby Smart, plus the preparation of these last few weeks. You've got all this time to look at film and find all the different weaknesses to exploit in their protection. And that's why I think Tyler's right. They're going to be all over Stroud, and it's going to be interesting to see. So my prediction is Georgia wins this game. I think they probably cover the 6.5, but if Ohio State's best self shows up, they could keep it close, and they might even be able to pull it out if there's like some fluky turnover stuff or anything like that you just, the stuff that you can't really predict.
Yeah, and we're known to be victims of the like what happened to Chad's team against us. We're known to be the victims of weird stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and if your weaknesses, as the experts are saying, your DBs, Marvin Harrison Jr.
100%.
should have 10 catches, 179 yards.
And that's what I'm honestly most nervous about, is like our D line is going to be in the backfield, but also our DBs are semi-questionable because, and it's one guy I'm going to mention because I've seen it all year. Keely Ringo is the one who had the game-winning pick in the national championship last year. He has not been playing up to team Georgia Tech was going at him the whole game.
Right.
And that's what makes me nervous, because you guys got receivers for days.
That we do.
And that's what makes me nervous. I think our D line is gonna be okay. It's our corners that I'm worried about with the receiving talent you guys have.
If you guys give CJ time, he will complete passes.
Which luckily we had guys like Jalen Carter to
and I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make, but Mayan Williams is healthy. He said he's 100% ready to go. So we have our running backs ready to roll. So we'll see.
All right.
And then it's a matter of our offense just getting it done, because we leaned on our defense all last year, and but our offense has been a lot better this year, so we need to keep rolling with that.
So I'm going to add some spice to it. Y'all have to come on wearing the other team's colors.
All right.
And you have to sing their fight song.
On
the air. That's what the bet is. That's what the bet is. We're spicing it up.
All right.
And with that, we're going to move on to the other side of that.
Because now we're going to lose.
So the other side of that semifinal is TCU Michigan. This game opened up at 9.5. Michigan favored by a touchdown and a field goal essentially. And it is moved now. Like you can get as good as -7.5 if you want to bet Michigan, and you can get as good as +8 if you want to bet TCU. But it's still, so that's it's roughly the same. We're still, north of a touchdown here for that game. But what do you guys think with this one? Because I actually feel like this game comes down to, if Michigan's O-line manhandles TCU's D-line like they should, they should handle business with no problem. All due respect to Duggan and the bulldog that he is, I still think that Michigan's O-line specifically is going to be too much to handle. But do you guys see the model again, back to that, because I think the Big 12 kind of got a bum rap. I think it's a much deep. A lot of people talk about how it is a deeper top to bottom conference than just about any conference in the country. Right. But I don't think there's enough respect given to like it's more than just deep. Like they don't have that many terrible teams. All of their teams in the top 8 or 10 of that conference probably are in the top 40 in the country, or you could make a case for it. Right. So like they played through a pretty tough schedule, and they handled their business throughout, with the lone exception being that championship game against Kansas State. What do you guys see with this game? My model says it's a Michigan by 1, which is pretty close to pick, and you're right there. So I think this could be a very close game, come down to, turnovers and maybe a field goal or overtime even. What do you guys think?
I like TCU to cover. I know that you talk about, obviously, like TCU's defense is going to have a hard time getting any stops, but I think Duggan is like the biggest X factor. I think in this playoff, when you talk about, I've said it before, we talk about team sports. Obviously, everybody can have so much impact on the team. Obviously, he's the quarterback, but the fact that he has willed his team by himself, essentially willed his team to wins, is something that you cannot deny, even against a team like Michigan, where they know they're a little dog in the fight. They know they are. They almost, even with one loss, almost didn't. Thank God they still got in, because I wouldn't have wanted to deal with Alabama. But like, I think that Michigan is like the same thing. I think that Michigan's going to be too confident. I think that they're already thinking about who they have in the championship. They're already thinking about, I shouldn't say this, but maybe I could see that maybe they've already been game planning for Ohio State or Georgia. I mean, you've had this month. I know that maybe that's giving them, like, that's just me speculating. I have nothing to base that off of.
Right.
But like, I could see Michigan at least overlooking TCU and it being a game.
I see if Michigan wins, they don't cover that spread. If Michigan loses, it's going to be in typical Michigan fashion with like a botched snap, fumbled punt return or something that they always that's been a staple of Jim Harbaugh, like in big moments, like someone on his team muffs something and they lose. I think it's going to be a close one. I think we're going to look at a shootout. I'd say all TCU has to do is force them to throw the ball, but apparently
we all thought, I think you said it, Nash, is that McCarthy can't throw them to a win, but that's exactly what he did.
Well, yeah, now I don't know what the hell to think now. So
yeah.
Corum's not playing. I keep forgetting Corum's out.
Yeah, but he didn't play really against Ohio State.
That's true too. I thought he was the factor, and apparently it didn't really matter.
So I don't see Michigan covering if they do win.
Can't make mistakes against Michigan, obviously. We've shown what happens when you make mistakes against Michigan. Sure. You have to keep the ball out of their offense's hands as long as you can, and you got to make the most of your possessions, period. TCU has to score almost on every possession, I think. At least you have to get, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, I think you have to get points when you get the ball.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, Big 12 defense, Big 12 offenses are not known for taking the air out of the ball.
Right.
Obviously.
No, well, I mean, yeah, but TCU, like, you go back and look at their game against Texas, and they had a couple of other games where it was one of those like 17-10 type of affairs that if the situation dictates, they can be that. Yeah. And I think if Michigan, again, it all comes down to, and I'm not saying necessarily this is an indictment on TCU's defense that they won't be able to generate stops. I think it's more about like, how good is Michigan's offensive line really? Like, are they what we have seen them do to Maryland and some of these other games where they just manhandle people?
But they could be exposed like
or are they going to be the team that showed up and almost lost to Illinois and should have lost to Illinois?
Should have, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's where, because I think that's, you look at TCU versus Illinois, and I don't think there's a comparison. And Michigan almost handed that game to them and got out of the way. And I wanted to say this too. Like, it's crazy. We're talking about, does Ohio State deserve to be in this game? Probably not. You could even maybe make a case that TCU doesn't deserve it because they didn't win their conference championship. But then you look at all the other teams who you could try to make a case for. Alabama didn't win their division. Clemson lost the last 2 games of the season. Like what?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
who else is
you
there?
lost to Notre Dame, and then you lost to South Carolina, and then you found a way to win the ACC championship, but that's about it. It's just and USC, like they backed their way into where they are, playing in the Cotton Bowl against Tulane, and now you got Utah and Penn State in the Rose Bowl, and it's
the teams that are here are supposed to really did prove that they're supposed to be here. I think
Michigan usually would have lost that game by letting the clock expire on that field goal kick. That's how
right. Yeah. So I think that I think it all comes down to, can TCU find ways to create some stops in the run game to force Michigan to have to throw the ball and then generate enough pressure? Because the one thing they do have is TCU has some good DBs, and they've got they've possibly the best receiver in this whole playoff. So like there's some opportunities to make plays there, and they've got one of the best running backs in this playoff too. So I'm looking at how Michigan is going to have to keep up with that offensive production, and can TCU create enough chaos up front? That's where it's really going to be for me, is if TCU can not lose the battle up front with their defensive front versus Michigan's O-line, then this game is a lot closer, and TCU possibly even wins it. If Michigan asserts itself there, then I don't think it matters what TCU does offensively, because if Michigan can control the line of scrimmage on offense, it's over.
And they have Michigan has a top 5 defense. Do you think TCU needs to get cute and creative on offense at all to score these points?
I mean, there's probably going to be some of that. I'm not going to lie. I don't think they necessarily need to. I think that's going to be one of those things that's more of like, does the situation dictate it?
Right.
Are they in a situation where they've realized, okay, look, the normal bread and butter stuff just isn't getting it done, so now we got to pull out some tricks.
Right.
I don't think it makes sense to do a lot of that stuff right out of the gate, where you're, out of the first, your first 20, 30 plays, 3 or 4 of them are some kind of, jet sweep, double reverse or throwing it back to the quarterback or some nonsense like that. But you could see some of that late. The only problem is, what my experience has been, whenever a team that's struggling starts doing that kind of stuff, it usually backfires. It's not a good thing. Usually that stuff is the kind of stuff you use when you're having some success and you use over pursuit to stop that success against your opponent, and you hit them on the backside with something that they're not expecting, because now they've over pursued to try to compensate for a weakness that you've exploited. So when you're the one in weakness and then you try to pull some tricks or whatever, it doesn't.
9 times out of 10 not going to work, right?
Because if they can play you straight up and defend you, then how's your trick shit going to work? It only works when they have to over pursue.
We need a Statue of Liberty. We need a hook and ladder. We need
Michigan's not trick plays. Everything you saw from Michigan trick play wise, they did it against Ohio State. Yeah, you won't see that again. They will
not. So all right. So let's move on to where we think this goes. So I think we're both, all 3 of us are kind of leaning towards this is going to be a Georgia Michigan rematch of that playoff game last year in the national championship. So who takes the whole thing down? Who takes the crown? Who do you guys think?
Well, I would love to. I want it to be us, because here's the thing. Now we're in the position, because of how our regular season went, it's either undefeated national champions or nothing.
Yeah,
that's it.
Right.
That is how our season can end. 2 ways. Mm-hmm. So I would like it to be undefeated national champions, because then Chad has nothing to go on. Snap, he went undefeated too. But I mean, because that's the thing. It's like, we could have dropped the game early and then we didn't. So it's now it's either undefeated or nothing. But I think we've handled being number 1 this year a hell of a lot better than we did last year. Mm-hmm. Because like, I don't know how many weeks it's been now, but at some point in the season, we had spent in our program's history, it had been 30 weeks of being number 1, and 15 of those weeks were as Kirby Smart as the head coach. The others were back in the day. But so that's what I'm saying is like I think we're doing a lot better at handling being the guy when we haven't been before. Mm-hmm. So
obviously, whereas Ohio State did not handle that very well.
No,
I think we've handled being.
I do think the winner of Ohio State Georgia, I think wins.
I think so too. That I agree with 100%. I think
for sure.
I think that
unless divine intervention, it's Michigan's magic year. You know what I mean? Stars align. I can't. That's the only way I see them getting it. If it's just like it was just meant to be.
After we babied Michigan last year, I just hope it's not. It's like, you know, I would like to just not see that happen to them.
So Jeremiah, what you're saying is you think that what happened in the shoe was redeemable. That you guys that it's this sort of situation where if you get that chance at a rematch, that it's going to be a different story because you feel like those demons are exercised through beating Georgia, and then now it's just like, okay, now we got unfinished business. We got to go take care of these guys because we fucked it up the first time.
That's the only way it would be redeemable. The only way. So if we beat Georgia and TCU beats Michigan, yes, national championship, great. I love it, but it just won't be the same unless
it's not. I know what you mean.
I agree. If y'all beat us, really it has to be at Ohio State, Michigan. National. Has that ever actually happened? Ever?
Never.
Has it ever been
never?
Okay.
Yep.
That would be insane if it did happen that way.
Is the game of all games to have a rivalry game be a national championship. Because like in Auburn, I don't see them being good enough to ever be with Alabama in the national championship. So this is the only opportunity we have to have a game like I'm sorry, I don't want to give it to you.
Right. Well,
I'm sorry, I don't want to give it to you. But if that's the way that things have to be, that'd be, you know, ridiculous to see. Dogs are barking, baby.
Dogs are barking.
What's their prediction?
That's they're usually actually I don't know the record. Like AG and I talk about it all the time, but I don't know what the record actually is on when they bark and whether the dog actually wins. But it seems like it's effective. It's I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But all right, so Jeremiah, you have time to stick around to go through some of the other New Year's Six?
Yeah. I got a few more minutes. Yeah.
All right. We only got 15 more minutes anyway.
So let's just run through it real quick. I'm gonna pull this up.
Let's go. So let's talk about LSU, Purdue, man.
Well, no, we're not in the New Year's Six, so we're not going to talk about that one. I don't know how to feel about that one. Keishawn Butte just declared for the draft after he said he was coming back.
So I'm just like, whatever. Back, right?
Yeah, Daniels is coming back, and there's a lot of other things to be excited for next year. Good recruiting class and everything, but as far as the bowl game is concerned, it's
shameful to lose to Purdue. Just know that
it is. I don't think it's going to happen, but you know,
start with
we lost to Texas A&M. Yes, that's what I was going to say. This is the Spencer Rattler's illegitimate children bowl because he is their daddy, both of them, Tennessee and Clemson. So this game opened up at 4.5, and it's pretty much still there. You can get better numbers for Tennessee. You know, there's some places that have it at 5.5, but you can get as good as +6 for Tennessee and -4.5 for Clemson. So if I'm looking at this from a betting standpoint, I actually like Tennessee in this game.
Yeah, I think +6 all day.
Yeah, I think if you
Milton
look at
a good backup player.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Milton is better than he's given credit for, and I know that Jalen Hyatt is skipping the game because he's going to the draft, and I get it. Like that's fine. He's a monster, and that him and Hendon Hooker both have a lot to do with how good we think Tennessee is.
100%.
But I'll just say that with what did Milton throw the ball like 13 times against Vanderbilt, and they ran for like 500 yards. Like this is not a terrible Tennessee team, and there's a lot of guys missing from for Clemson in this game too. A few defensive players opting out, a few offensive players opting out for both teams. This is one of those crazy games where it's just like I don't know. It makes it. We were talking about this before Jeremiah and I were before we came on that like college football bowl season is so different now from what it was in the 80s, 90s, and even the early 2000s. So many guys opting out, so many guys entering the transfer portal, and they're like leaving for other teams, and you just don't know what to expect. And even the ones that are playing, you're like, but are they really in it? You know?
And so, I mean, it's almost like just like a showcase for what you might see next year.
Yeah, a little bit. And so the reason why I like Tennessee the most in this game is because if I'm looking at this from the standpoint of like who has the most at stake in this game, it has to be
Dabo.
Tennessee. And
Oh, you
no,
think?
it's got to be Tennessee and Heupel. They haven't done anything. This program has been so buried for so long in the SEC East and in the SEC in general that they beat Alabama finally this year, and they're finally starting to put their stamp and build towards something that can be something. Clemson is going in the opposite direction, where this is a team that expects to be in the playoffs every year and expects to be playing for a national championship every year. And I just wonder how motivated those guys are actually going to be to play Tennessee without Hendon Hooker and without Jalen Hyatt. And, they're hearing all that stuff. Whereas Tennessee's like, these motherfuckers won the national championship twice while we've been watching them when we were in high school, so we're going to go take that ass out. And so that's one of the main reasons why I like Tennessee. If I'm looking at all the different weird, intangible things that go on in bowl season, that's the thing that jumps out to me is that Tennessee kind of has more of that chip on their shoulder to play for, similar to like what we were talking about with TCU, where I think there's a greater chance that Ohio State doesn't show up than there is that TCU doesn't show up. Right. Because Ohio State is kind of like, oh fuck, we got to play Georgia, and we really kind of blew it. We should be the number 1 seed, but we blew it against Michigan. You got all those factors. TCU is like, okay, this is our shot.
Yeah.
We're gonna die on the field, or we're gonna win this thing. Like nobody's from our cold dead fingers, they're gonna pull this away from us. Whereas Ohio State's like, yeah, I don't know. We kind of rolled over already.
We can win it next year, I guess.
We'll go back. We're going to be back in here again. Anyway, you know what I mean? They'll have us in the top 5 no matter what, in the polls next year. So I think this kind of mirrors that. I think Tennessee is trying to prove something.
They have to.
I don't think Clemson's trying to prove anything.
The biggest, not let down. Like it's just like how you fly so high just to crash and burn. So they have to end it with something
on a solid note. Yeah.
So in the opposite direction, though, I feel the opposite way about this Alabama K-State game. I think so too. I think Alabama kills them.
They're angry. You don't want angry Alabama.
They're angry, and Saban is not one to like the fact that Bryce Young and Willie Anderson are both playing is like, what the hell? What does Saban do that how much money did you have to pay them?
They're gonna.
What kind of NIL deal did he pull out of his ass to get 2 guys who should not be playing in this game?
Signing bonus in the NFL.
That's what I'm saying. Like what?
Even when we switched to where these games aren't important and people started opting out, even when that first started happening, if Alabama wasn't playing for the championship, they were still showing up at bowl games and playing well.
Yeah.
So I don't see why this would be any different.
No, they're gonna dog Kansas State. I'll take Alabama all day just because of what they feel slighted, even though honestly this is the way it should be, but they still feel slighted. And like I would say, like Bryce Young and Will Anderson are still here, and you have Nick Saban as your head coach. Bottom line, Alabama absolutely just takes Kansas State to the woodshed.
Take the 5.5.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'm definitely giving those points. All right, so the next one on the slate is this Tulane USC game, which on the surface looks like, why would you not take USC, and why is it only 1.5? Now I know Caleb Williams is still kind of questionable. I think he's talking about he wants to try to play. I'm not sure how we'll it's another one of those things where he's probably the perfect case for what I was talking about earlier when I said that some of these guys, even if they opt in, it's like Grayson McCall the other night with Coastal Carolina, where he scores a touchdown to go up 14-10, and he lands on his head or whatever, and he's just like, you know what, I'm done. I shouldn't have even been playing in this game.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take the rest of the night off. And so Caleb Williams, gets a little bit tender in that hamstring, and it could be all she wrote for him. And I don't know what USC looks like without him in the lineup. We know what they look like with him struggling to fight through a hamstring injury against Utah, and it's not pretty. And Tulane is sneaky. I think they're better than a lot of people give them credit for.
Yeah.
I just don't know. This spread is so tight that
it is tight.
I mean,
It's a matter of what. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jeremiah.
I was just gonna say USC's got the better coach. I'm gonna give it to them for sure.
Yeah, I think Lincoln Riley would get it done, but I think Tulane's gonna be piss and fire the whole game. So at least it's gonna be they're gonna make it. So I think they're gonna make it worth watching.
Right.
You know, I think that they will hold their own when it comes down to it. But yeah, it's like will Caleb Williams even play? And if he does, how long will he play?
Right.
You know,
and how intensely will he be like?
Yeah, because he's not
trying to pick up first downs with his legs. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. It's not going to be exactly that, and that's so you have Heisman Caleb Williams versus like I'm just trying to not get hurt. He's the Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah.
So right. I don't know which one we're gonna get. All right, so Penn State, Utah. This one's really intriguing because I like both of these teams a lot, and I think they're both very underrated, and I think it's going to be a really good game. Yeah.
Penn State in the Rose Bowl is always a good time.
Yeah. Cam Rising is a really good quarterback when he wants to be, and he can make some stupid mistakes. But then so can Clifford. So like, I don't know, like what are we going to get here with Penn State and Utah? I think it could be down to the wire.
Clifford's got the running backs to lead on, though. Singleton is very impressive.
Yeah.
And I'm missing the other guy's name. I'm pretty sure they have two. But I think that Penn State.
Singleton's a freshman, though, right?
Huh?
Singleton's the freshman.
He's a freshman. Yeah.
Yeah. He's good.
He's a guy.
Yeah.
I think that this is going to be. I think this will be one of the best of the New Year's Six. Like of like the
if not the best.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the best of like the non-playoff games. 100%.
Yep.
Just because these teams are going to show up and it's going to be like the Rose Bowl always like, for some reason, it's, it might not be in that playoff status this year, but it still is they call the granddaddy of them all for a reason. I think that it garners good competition. And I think that I like Penn State, just,
I like Penn State because they got something to prove. They're kind of looked at as like an afterthought now in the Big Ten, where I think they need to solidify their name a little bit. I think they take it.
Yeah, I actually like Utah in this one, but we'll see. We'll see how it ends up playing out. This line did move. It was Penn State favored by 1, and now they're like 2 to 2.5 point dogs pretty much across the board. So that tends to make me want to take Penn State plus those points, but I'm just not 100% sold on it. So since even though it's not in the New Year's Six, since you guys bullied me into it, and I'm wearing the gear and everything, and y'all know me, I'm a huge LSU fan. Graduated from there and all that good stuff. Went to my first LSU game in the womb when my mom was pregnant. My birthday's in January, so like I went to probably a handful of games while I was still in utero. So I grew up on campus. Like my parents were living in apartments on campus when they have these married student apartments or whatever. So they got married, I think, when they were freshmen, or when my dad was a freshman. My mom actually didn't go to school there, but she lived on campus with him. And anyway, so I was born I think when they were juniors or when he was a junior or whatever. So anyway, I had my LSU.
The roots run deep.
They run way deep. Yeah. So Purdue opened up as 6.5 point dogs, and now that line has moved to 14.5, pretty much across the board.
That's about
that's insane. But like I'm not betting against it, but I'm not putting any money on this. Like I'm kind of like
I wouldn't.
Tyler, like
he likes to randomly show up in bowl games.
Randomly.
Yeah. I might do the Tyler Hohen show. What's that?
Did they not just beat Tennessee last year's bowl games? Am I mistaken? Purdue beat somebody.
Yeah, I don't remember.
They did. I can't remember who it was.
What were you about to say, Chad?
I might do the Tyler Hohenschelt special and burn some money and put it on Tennessee money. I mean, Purdue money line, and just sacrifice it for the win. But it's not really. To me, like winning or losing this game, as cool as it would be to win it and have another 10-win season, it's not like the end of the world if you lose it. So, and that's one of the things that makes this stuff concerning is like I don't want to put money on some stuff where when as a fan, I'm not even like really that invested in it.
Right.
So
they did beat Tennessee in overtime 48-45.
Okay.
But look, all LSU has to do is show up to play. If you guys show up to not play, Purdue will sneak up and get you.
Yeah.
If you guys show up to play, you should cover that easy.
And then you have Mississippi State, Illinois.
Yeah, I don't care about
that's
that
a toss up.
Yeah, that's one that's so interesting because of the Mike Leach factor in that. Like are they worse because they're not thrilled about anyway? It's just a bizarre. Or are they playing like go through a wall for him? I do want to pull this up. So Cassius Cam asked earlier, are we doing parlays? So I put one together. I want to see what you guys think of it. And maybe you can talk me off of any of these pieces of it if you want. It's a 6-leg parlay that's 20-1 odds, basically. So it's Tennessee plus the 5.5. All right. This is on FanDuel. So that's the way I built it. So it's 5.5 on FanDuel. Alabama money line. I don't want to take the 6.5 just because as much as I feel like Alabama should run away with this one, I'm not a big fan of bowl games taking spreads for favorites when it's a touchdown or more.
Right.
It's just ugly. Because the last thing I want is for Alabama to win by 6 because of a backdoor cover, and this whole parlay blows up in my face. So I'm taking Alabama money line, TCU plus the 7.5 against Michigan, Georgia money line against Ohio State. Again, I don't like that spread. Like I think that this game goes down to the wire unless Ohio State just doesn't show up, which I don't expect to see. And then I like USC money line against Tulane. I'm not playing that. It's only 1.5. I'm not getting that much, of a reduction in the juice. So I'm just going to go with that. And then I got Utah money line minus 134. So this is your chance, guys. Talk me off of this Utah pick because I'm willing to flip it to Penn State plus the 2.5.
Well, you were also very unsure just a few minutes ago about USC.
I like Penn State there. I think that I think that Utah depends on one guy as far as Penn State is dependent on multiple. That's what I'm saying. It's like Utah has to lean on Cam Rising or nobody.
Yeah.
And then while Penn State has the running back stable, they still have, Sean Clifford is Sean Clifford, but they have a good team.
Yeah.
I'm with Tyler on that.
All right. So we're going to go Penn State 2.5. What does that do? That makes it way. Oh, wait, shit. I got to. That would be tough. You'd have to thread the needle.
Yeah, you would.
No wonder it was so hard. It was like, Jesus, man, the spread went. The odds went crazy on me. Yeah, because I picked threading the needle on that. And yeah, so the USC thing. It could blow up. I tell you what, let's do this. Rather than that, let's just go with this. Not the under. Let's go with the over in the Tulane USC.
That's always a fair play when USC is in town.
That way, I don't have to worry about because like whoever plays, I think they're going to be able to put up points against Tulane, and I know Tulane should be able to put up points. USC's defense is not good, and it's Lincoln Riley. Mm-hmm. Lincoln Riley hates not having the game go 80-point totals. So yeah, so we're going to do that, and we're at 23-48. So yeah, so
I like that a lot better.
Your $10 bet on here will win you $235. So
yeah.
There you go, Cassius Cam.
Yeah.
Your parlay has been built.
I like that. Yeah.
I'd support that.
I might copy that.
The South End Zone parlay. You heard it here first.
So yeah. So if you need to go back, rewind, and pause that little segment right there. You've got a couple of days to get this bet in. The game starts Saturday morning, and so looking forward to it. But yeah, thank you guys. This has been fun. Got any parting words for
Go Bucks?
Go Dogs, baby.
There we go. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say, "Go Tigers!" This is the South End Zone. We're out of here. Peace, y'all.